مرحبا أهلا وسهلا. We are now in الدرس السابع, which is 7, unit 7. So if you've got your page, you got your book, go ahead and open up to page 146. We are in unit 7. We're going to be covering 3 letters in this video. And they're fairly simple letters, but the last 2 we have a pair of a heavy and a light letter. Just like, remember when we had Sin and Slad? Sin was light and Slad is heavy. We had Dal is light, Dad is heavy, Dal is light, Va is heavy. Right, so we have one more pair that we're going to be going over in this video. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first letter. We're on page 146. And there is a little bit background noise with this fan and with the laptop. I just don't know what to do about it, so it is what it is. Okay, so the first letter is the letter Fa. Okay, the letter Fa. So the letter Fa, the way that we're going to write it is, here's your line. You're going to do a small loop like this, and then a dot. So the Fa is similar to the letter Ba in terms of that sort of flat boat ship. And the sound that the Fa makes, of course, is the F sound. Okay? So think of it as it's flat, it stays on the line, and it's horizontally a little bit long. Okay? Fa. Now, the letter Fa, we'll go ahead and do initial, medial, and final. Initial position, very easy. It just looks like the first half of itself. Just like that. So how would you write Fa, Fu, Fi? Again, anytime I ask you these questions, you always pause the video and then unpause when you're ready. Fa, Fu, Fi. When you have Fi, you're going to do that circle shape and then the Ya. But oftentimes when you do the Fa with a Ya, you can go like this and put the Ya directly below it like this, which is similar. Remember when we did the letter Ba and we followed it by the Ya, I said you could do it like this, but oftentimes you'll see the Ya is right underneath the letter. So it's similar. Okay, you're going to circle this as a vocab word, and it means in. So we're going to now use this because this is our first preposition ever. We're going to say, I am in my house. I am in my house, which you probably are. Okay. We have Ana, which we haven't done. Okay, we can't do that. Scratch that. Let's say, my dad is in my house. So we haven't done I yet. We'll do that in the next video. Okay, so my dad is in my house. Abi, my dad. Remember, there's no word for is, so we cross that out. We just put the word in. Abi, fi. My house. Remember, house goes first, and then my is the ya at the end. Fi, beiti. Fi, beiti. Abi, fi, beiti. So now you can use fi and try to create sentences using the preposition fi. Okay. Now in medial position, the fa is very simple. It just looks like itself. It's just connected on both sides. So we're going to take the line before and then circle and then connect it. Make sure that you keep that circle small. This is different than the letter ghain. The letter ghain has a triangle shape, so that's the ghain. The letter fa has a round shape, so that's the fa. Okay, that's the difference between those two. Okay, what was the number for 0, which we did back in Unit 4? Slifr. Slifr, not sifr, but slip. Slifr with a slide. Slide, kasra. Fa, sukun. Ra, صفر, meaning 0. Okay? Remember, the slide always has to have that tail before you put the next letter. And then in final position, the fa is easy because it takes full form. It looks like itself. So go ahead and write that a few times. And we're going to do the word saf. Saf. Not sa, but sa. So it's heavy. Slide, fatha, saf, fa, fa, fa. And you're going to put a shadda on the fa. Saf, okay, word it means class. Class. So where are you right now? The saf, in class. So saf. The shadda is there. Remember, when we have a word that ends in a shadda, really you're not pronouncing it with shadda, you're just ending it right with the sukun. But if you attach something to it, so if I attach a yat to it, I want to say my class, then you have to pronounce that fa twice because the fa has a shadda. Safi. Safi. Okay? So that would be my class. Okay, so now let's flip the page. We're going to move on. Let's move on to the next letter. I had to step on and switch my glasses. It's giving me a headache. Okay, so we're going to move on now. So now we've done fa. We're going to move on and we're going to look at page 149. And in page 149, we're doing the next letter. Now, the next letter that you hear is a heavy letter. Okay, now the letter fa stayed flat on the line. This next letter is similar to the shape of the fa in some respect and is different in some respect. So instead of them being pairs, maybe they're cousins. And it's a heavy letter. This is the letter qaf. Move my cursor here. Qaf. The way that we're going to write the letter qaf is we're going to start the same way as a fa, but we're going to dip below the line. So fa stays flat on the line. Qaf dips below the line. And of course, you can connect the dots if you want. Now, the qaf is pronounced by the very back of the tongue. Okay? The very, very back of the tongue. And what the back of the tongue is going to do is it's going to close off against your throat, and it's going to close off the air in your throat. Qa, 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 qa. The tongue is hitting the back of the throat. So the very back of the tongue, this is the back of the tongue, is pushing against the back of the throat. Like you're choking almost, okay? That sound, when you push it against the back of your throat and then you let go, qa, qa. You get the qa sound. Okay, this sound doesn't really exist, right, in English. So if you want to transliterate it, you could transliterate it. A lot of times people write it as a Q sound. Qa, qa, qa. If you want to do it as a heavy K sound and put a dot on top, you could transliterate it that way. But knowing that it is a heavy sound. Qa, qa, qa. Okay. And then, of course, you can look at the description on page 148. It says your tongue should be flat. Pull it back to the base of your tongue. We talked about that. So really, that's what it is. It's the tongue hitting the back of your tongue hitting the back of your throat. Ka, 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 ka. And then try to say it with. So this right here, we'll pronounce ka. We'll pronounce it with a dhamma. Ku. Ku. It's the same thing, hitting the back of the tongue and then making the u sound. Ku. And then the hardest one is always with the kasra. Qi. Qi. You're pushing the tongue back and then you're dropping your jaw to make the e sound. Qa, qu, qi. Qa, qu, qi. So all of this is happening back of the mouth. Okay, it's all happening in the back of the mouth. So you're going to practice qa, qu, qi. Qa, qu, qi. Now, there's another letter that we're going to do right after this letter, which is the K sound, kaf. Okay, this is qa. So this is, think of it as like the heavy K sound almost, and then we'll do the light K sound afterwards. So let's focus just on the heavy one right now. Okay, qa, qu, qi. Let's write a word with qaf in its full form. Fawq, fawq, fa with the o sound. Fawq, ending with that qaf. Fawq. So when you end on it, you're making that sound where the tongue is hitting the back of the throat and it's blocking off air for a second. Okay? It's the sound that you would make if you were choking and you couldn't breathe and you're trying to push air out. Okay? Fawq, fawq. We're going to start with a fa initial position. It's making the O sound, so we have a fatha and a waw sukoon. Remember, waw doesn't connect to the next letter, so we're going to put this. Oops, that looks like it's connected, but it shouldn't be. Like this. Fawq. Okay? And it means above. Fawq means above. And because it means above, a lot of times people use it for upstairs. Okay? Now, one thing to know about the letter qaf is it makes this q sound. But oftentimes in many dialects, because the qaf is slightly difficult to pronounce, the qaf gets pronounced like a hamza. So instead of pronouncing it here, fawq, in many dialects it would become fawq. Fawq. There's words, for instance, like qalb, which means heart. And in many dialects, people pronounce it alb, like with a hamza. There's qamar, is moon. But in many dialects, people pronounce it amar. Qalam is pen, but in many dialects, people pronounce it alam. So this right here is just a dialectal difference. In some dialects, like in the North African dialect, the qaf gets pronounced like a ga. Galam, galam, right? So it's more of that sound. So it just depends on where you are. But in Fusha, obviously, we're going to pronounce it as a full qa sound. So if we had the letter qaf with the fatha, we have the sound qa, qu, qi. So now what we're going to do, let's switch the page. Here we have the letter qaf. We're going to look at initial, medial, final. Initial position looks like the fa. It's simple. The only difference, 2 dots. Okay? And of course, with 2 dots, you can also put a line. So, qa, qu, qi. Qa, qu, qi. Medial position also looks like fa. That's why they're linked together, because they both look the same in initial and medial position, because it's just that loop. It's the only difference, of course, is the 2 dots. So you can put it 2 dots or you can put it a line. And then in final position, it's going to take its full form. Connected. Right, this. Like that. So let's do some words. Let's spell out the word. Qaf. If you were to spell out its name, how would you write that? Qaf. Qaf. Do a different color. Qaf. You'd have a qa with an alif. Qa. Remember, heavy letters with the alif make the ah sound. They're the ah sound versus ah is light. Qa. Okay, so qa, qaf, alif. And that naturally happens because the name of the letter qaf has the ah sound in it, just like sad has a ah, sa, la, va, ta. All those letters have the ah sound in it, so you're naturally going to make the ah sound whenever you have it with the fatha or an alif. But if you have a light letter, ba, ta, sa, right? All of those have the ah sound, so you're going to make them with the ah sound. So that's the difference between the two. Okay, qaf, alif doesn't connect, so the last letter we write in its full form. Qaf, that would be just writing the name of the letter. Okay, let's do a word. Waraqa. 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 It's a feminine word. It's a word that is feminine, and it means, here, waraqa, paper. Wa, ra, remember they don't connect. Then you have initial position because it doesn't connect. And because I told you it's feminine, ta marbuta. Waraqa, paper. So if it was my paper, we would say ورقتي. You'd open that ta to an open ta, ورقتي. If I wanted to say my brother's paper, because it can mean piece of paper, it can also mean like a paper that you write for a class. Okay. ورقة أخي. Paper of my brother, my brother's paper. Notice when you have a possessive phrase and a letter ta marbuta is on the last letter of the first word, then you pronounce the T sound. ورقة أخي. That shows you that those two are a phrase, they go together. Okay, so ورقة. Okay, let's do another one. دقيقة. دقيقة. It's also a feminine word. دقيقة. دقيقة. Da. That line. Should I do the line in yellow? Da doesn't connect to the next letter, so we have qaf and initial again. Daqi. Yeah, remember, it looks like this in medial. Qa. It's a feminine word, so the last letter has to be ta marbuta. So we're going to put qaf here in medial position, and then we're going to end it with ta marbuta. Daqiqa. Daqiqa means minute. Daqiqa. And because the letter qaf in many dialects is pronounced like a hamza, people say da'iya. Okay, but daqiqa, we're going to pronounce it in fusha. So if I want to say 1 minute, we would say daqiqa. Wahid is one. Wahid. But because this is feminine, we have to add wahida. So if you were next to someone and you want to say 1 minute, 1 minute. Daqiqa wahida. 1 minute. Or just daqiqa. Like, give me a minute. Okay. Let's do another one. We're going to do a series of words that means friends. So let's do rafiq. 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 So pause the video. Write that down. Okay. Rafiq. Ra. Fatha. Ra. Fa initial position. Fi. Rafiq. Rafiq means friend. So go ahead and put the feminine next to it. What would it look like if it was female? We would put the qaf in medial position, and then end it with ta marbuta. Rafiqa. Now, there are different types of friends in Arabic. So we're going to go through a couple of types of friends. Rafiq comes from rafaq, which means kind. So this is a kind or a gentle friend. A really kind friend. A friend that you like because they're kind. Okay? Like Rafiqi, right? In Lion King comes from this. Rafiq. Now let's do another level of friend. Sahib. We saw this in the reading that we did, drill 28. Sahib. Sa. Ha kasra. Ba. Sahib. And actually, we'll put this down here. We'll call this the third level. Sahib. So go ahead and make it feminine. Sahiba. And sahib is a companion. This is someone you spend a lot of time with. Then there's another type of friend. Sadiq. Sadiq. Sa. Di. Dal. Doesn't connect to the ya, so initial. Sadiq with the qaf at the end. Sadiq and the feminine. صديقة. And this comes from صدق, which means true or trust. Honest, truthful. So this is a trustworthy friend. رفيق, someone who's kind. صديق, a trustworthy friend. صاحب, a companion. So these are different levels of friendship. There are actually a few more for friendship, but we're going to just stick with these right now. Rafiq could be anybody you think is nice that's your friend. But Sadiq is someone who you're going to be really honest with. You're more open with that person. And Sahib is the closest one because you're in companionship. You spend so much time with that person. So they know you because they spend so much time with you. Okay? So now what I want you to do for each of these, I want you to think of one friend that you have that fits that category and then mention their name. So for instance, I could say Rafiqi Ahmad. My friend Ahmad. Rafiqati Fatima. Okay, so it could be male or female, doesn't matter. So remember in that reading drill, we saw Sahibati Ghada. So it's my friend Ghada. So you're doing the same phrase, but just pick these three levels of friendship. Okay. Sadiqati Khalifa. Okay. Sahibi Ismail. So just pause and try to come up with some names and use the phrase. So as if you're introducing someone, you're introducing me to your friend. Okay? And so when you're using this, you're really saying what level of friendship you have with this person, that I really trust this person, or this person is really kind, or I spend so much time with this person. And that's the beauty of the Arabic language, is that there's so many words for in English what we would just consider one word, right? Same thing with words like love. There's so many different words for the word love because it describes what kind. Is it gentle? Is it passionate? Is it steady? Is it, what kind of love is it? Is it very deep? Is it intimate? So that's just a little glimpse into the beauty of rhetoric within language. Okay, so now we have done the letter Qaf. So what we can do is we can actually look at, or is this? We're going to do the next letter and then we're going to do some comparisons. So in your book on page 149, there's drill 2, which is whether you or not you can hear the Qaf in the word. I'm going to go over the next letter before we do that drill because I want to have you recognize what that light letter is in order for you to be able to distinguish between the two. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and switch to page 152. And the next letter that we're going to be doing is the light version. So this right here, Qaf, was the heavy version. So if you want to call it the heavy K, or if you want to call it the Q sound, right? It's different. It's not like in English how Q is also always with a U, like the Kwa, like queen or quack. It's not like that. It's just Qa by itself. Okay, so that's the heavy one. The light K sound is the regular K sound like in English. Okay? And that letter is written like this, and its name is Kaf. And the sound it makes is the K sound, or the C sound like in cat. Okay? Kaf. Notice the difference. Qaf, the A sound, Qaf, and Kaf. Ka, ka. Ka, like the regular English K. So the English K is when you have the middle of the tongue, the midpoint of the tongue, ka, hits the roof of the mouth towards the back, but not completely towards the back. Ka, ka, ka. Whereas ka is all the way at the back of the tongue and the back of the throat. Okay, so we have the letter kaf. Kaf. So let's do a word. Let's do akhbarak. 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 Alif Hamza. Kha. Akh. Ba. Ra. K. And end it with the kaf. Akhbarak. And akhbarak akhbar means news. Akhbarak is your news. So you are actually going to circle the letter kaf. Now that we have the letter kaf, we have another attached pronoun. When you add a ya to the end of the word, it makes it mine. If I said akhbari, it's my news. When you add a kaf to the end of a noun, it makes it yours, your news. Okay? So we're going to practice that in just a little bit. We'll go over a whole chart going over this. But before we do that, I just want to compare and contrast the sound. Okay. Ka, qa. Ka, qa. And of course, that should be right over it. Ka, qa. The a versus a. Ku versus ku. Ku, ku. Ku, like cool. Ku. 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 There's no English equivalent for that. Ki, like key. So ka, ku, ki. Make it heavy. Qi. Ki, qi. Ki, qi. Ka, ku, ki, light. Ka, ku, qi. Ka, ku, qi. So all of these are heavy and these are light. So if you were to look at listening exercise 5 on the top of page 152, there are comparisons, right, between the two words. One that has a kaf and one that has a qaf. So let's look at some of them. Let's look at khamsa, number 5. You're going to try to pronounce them. Okay, so this one here, sheen fatha and then stopping on the kaf. Shak. Shak. Ah, it's making a light sound. Shak means doubt. Shak. It's not going to be a vocab word though. Make it heavy now at the end. Shak. Shak. And it almost makes that fatha and the sheen sound a little bit heavier too. Shak. 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 Let's look at another one. Let's look at raqam thalatha, number 3. Number 3. That first letter here, that's a kaf. We're going to go over how to write it in a second, but I'm just telling you it's a kaf for now. Okay, so if I have kaf with an alif, it's going to be ka, kabus, kabus, which is a nightmare. Kabus. Now make it heavy because it's a qaf. Qabus. Qabus. Qabus is like a beautiful person, a beautiful man. Qabus. Notice the difference in the meaning, right? Because you have the ka and the qaf are two different letters. So what you can do now is you can pause the video and you can go to the website and look at drill 2, which is on page 149, and you're going to hear a word for each number. And you decide, does it have a qaf or does it have a kaf? Is it a heavy qa sound or is it a light ka sound? Okay? Okay, so let's do the writing of the letter kaf. So here you have kaf. Now, kaf in its independent form has this interesting shape on the inside. Some people look at it and they say, oh, that looks like a hamza. It's not. That is actually a reminder to you of what the kaf looks like in initial position. In initial position, kaf looks like this shape. Just like that. And it just so happens that it's written in the inside of its independent form. Almost like it's just reminding us that, hey, the kaf is funky. It looks different when it's in initial position. So initial position, diagonal shape like this. So if I have it with an alif, it will look like this. Ka, Ku, ki. And all the while here you have it sitting on the line. Now, another way that you could write it initially that some people do is you could write it as a straight line and then come back and write the top over it like that. And that would be fine too. So in that case, if you wanted to write ka, you would write it like this. Or you could write it like this. Okay. So it just depends on your preference. So let's do a word. Let's do kabir. Kabir. Ka-bir. Not ka, but ka. Keeping it short. Kabir. 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 Starting with the kaf, like this, and it has a fatha. Or if you want to write it like this, and it has a fatha, that's fine. And in your book, that's how they show you how to write it. B, ba, followed by a ya, end it with a ra. Kabir. Kabir. Kabir means the opposite of صغير. ما معنى صغير? Small. Kabir, big. So now you have big and small. So you can do phrases with big. If I want to say big house, بيت كبير. How about a big cat? Pause the video and try to write big cat. Big cat. Cat comes first. Okay. Oh, I gotta give you the word cat. I don't think I gave you the word cat. So here we go. The word for cat is قطة. Now you have a letter that has a word that has two heavy letters. قاف with a ta. قطة. قطة. Not kitta, but قطة. قطة means cat, and it's a word that happens to be feminine. قطة. And so if I want to say small, we have to put ta marbuta because it's feminine. قطة صغيرة. قطة صغيرة. قطة meaning cat. So add that to your list. So صغير is an adjective, so of course when it's describing something that's feminine, it will also take the feminine. Okay, let's do kaf in medial position. And in medial position, you're connecting your line here, a straight line, and then you'll come back and write the top. Okay? Like this. Now, if you want to connect it this way, you could do it too. But most people do it this way just so that you don't have to lift your pencil twice. Or you don't have to lift your pencil in the middle of writing the word. You write the whole shape, and then you come back and put the top in. Okay? So let's do the word sukkar. It's light. Sukkar. If you have shy and you want to drink it right, it has to have sukkar. It sounds like sugar. So we have seen with the kaf right here, and it has a shadda, sukkar. You can write it like this, sukkar. And the seen can be written in the other way too, right? So you can also write it like this, sukkar. Vocab word means sugar. So if I want to say, I want urid sukkar. Urid sukkar, shy. I want sugar in the tea. Sukkar. Okay, let's do final position, which is pretty simple. It looks like itself. Connected, looks like itself. Final position. So let's do حضرتك. 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 ح فتحة. ح ضاد, stopping on it. حض. را. را doesn't connect. ta, and then ending on the kaf. حضرتك. And you can also pronounce this حضرتك. حضرتك, حضرتك. حضرتك and حضرتك is like saying, excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, ma'am. Okay, so you're at a store, you're asking someone a question. You refer to them, you refer to them as حضرتك or حضرتك. And حضرة just means presence. So you're acknowledging their presence and you're respecting their presence. Okay, now let's come back and talk about this kaf at the end. So this is attaching to the end, so it literally means your presence. So now we know that kaf at the end is a preposition, which means your. Okay. So we have, let's use the word bait, keep it simple. If I wanted to say my house, we take the word bait and what do we add to the end? We add a ya to the end. And it makes it my house. Right? Now, if I wanted to, just keep the same color. If I wanted to say the word bait, I'll add it twice. And I want to say your house, I'm going to add a kaf at the end. Now, two things to note about the pronunciation. So this one means your house. Two things to note about the pronunciation. In Fusha, so in modern standard Arabic, the pronunciation would be like this. You would put a dhamma on the letter before the kaf, and you would pronounce it with a fatha for the masculine. Baytuka. Baytuka. We did this before. Remember we did anta and anti. And we said anta is you, and it's the masculine because it has a fatha. And anti with a kasra is the feminine. It's the same thing here, the fatha, the difference between the fatha and the kasra. So if I say baytuka, it means your house, and the your that I'm referring to is masculine. So if I'm talking to you, and you are Ahmad, or you are George, or you are Farouk, you're male, I'm going to say baytuka. Okay? But if I'm talking to you, and you are a woman, or you are a girl, I'm going to say to you, baytuki, with the kasra. Okay? So it's the same meaning, it's still your, but this time it's feminine. And it doesn't make the house feminine. It's the person you're talking to. Okay, it's the person you're talking to. Baytuka, baytuki. Okay, it just depends on the person that you're talking to. If you want to use the gender neutral pronoun, then you would use the plural, which is baytukum. Kum is the plural. We haven't done it yet because we haven't done the M, the mean sound. But kum would be, if you want to say your house, using the plural. Okay, so bayti, baytuka, baytuki. Now, another thing to note about the pronunciation of these two words is that oftentimes in dialect, and now even in educated spoken Arabic, people will use this form even though it's not complete Fusha. And it's only for ease of pronunciation. So if I say baytuka, it's a lot of harakat, right? There's a lot of different vowels going on there. So what people do sometimes is instead of pronouncing this dhamma, they'll take the fatha and they'll pronounce the letter before it with a fatha. And so instead of saying baytuka, they'll say baytak, and that would be the masculine. So you're just pushing the fatha on the last, so that the last letter, you don't have to pronounce it with a haraka. And then the same thing would happen here. The kasra here would move to the ta, so we would say baytak. Baytak, baytak. So if I'm talking to Muhammad, I'm going to say baytak, your house. If I'm talking to Layla, I'm going to say baytak, your house. Okay. بيتك, بيتك. So that's just the difference in pronunciation. So if you want to do that, you can, because it's easier. It's easier to pronounce. So let's do another one. Let's take some different words that we have. And then we're going to make them mine and yours, masculine and feminine. Okay, so let's do... Oops. The word سيارة. We'll do the word سيارة. And let's do the word jar. So go ahead, start with jar, and then move on to سيارة. And you want to do this my, yours, masculine, and your feminine. Okay. So I'm just going to write the word jar for all of them because we're simply attaching to the end. So we'll start with that one. So just pause and then come back when you're ready. Okay, my neighbor, we're going to say jari. Because the letter ra doesn't connect, none of these are going to connect. Jari, my neighbor. Okay, your neighbor. You want to be super fusha? Jaruka. If you want to pronounce it a little bit more like dialect, a little bit easier pronunciation, we're going to say jarak. So either one is fine. Jaruka, jarak. Your neighbor feminine, if you're... Oops. Jaruki. Or we can put the kasra on the ra. Jarik. It doesn't mean the neighbor is female. It means that you are. Okay? So this is if I'm talking to a woman and her neighbor is male. I'm talking to Layla and I'm talking about her neighbor. Jarik, your neighbor. Okay? Now, if it was feminine, then what would happen? Which, why don't we just do that? Why don't we do the feminine here? Jara. What happens when you say my neighbor and it's feminine? We open the ta so it looks like a regular ta, and then we add the e to the sound. Jarati. Jarati, my neighbor. So, for all of these, I'm going to write them twice. You're going to write the ta connected. So now the neighbor is a woman, and I want to say your neighbor. You're male, but your neighbor is female. Jara tu ka. Jara tu ka. And if that's a little bit hard to pronounce, we just say jaratak. Notice the ra here has a fatha because the original word ra has a fatha because it's followed by ta marbuta. Anytime you have a word with ta marbuta, the letter before gets pronounced with a fatha. So jaratuka, your neighbor. Jaratuki, your neighbor. So if I'm talking to you, you're Layla, you're a woman, and your neighbor is Fatima. She's also a woman. Jaratuki. And if you want a little bit easier pronunciation, jaratik. Jaratik. Okay. Now I want you to do the same exact thing. You're going to do this, just keep the same. Okay. Same exact thing. I'm going to start erasing, so if you need it, just rewind and pause and get the chart down so you have everything correct. So now let's do the word sayyara, which is car. Sayyara. So pause, and then once you got it. So sayyara is feminine. So I'm going to put the ta marbuta, I'm going to open it so it looks like a regular ta. And I'm not putting all the harakats there because I don't want you to have too many harakats, but you should know that you pronounce it there with the shadda. Okay, my car, sayyarati, with the ya, sayyarati. Your car, sayyaratuka. Or we can say sayyaratak. Sayyaratak. If you're feminine, sayyaratik with the kasra. So you can say sayyaratik. Or if you want to be super formal, sayyaratuki. Your car. So if I want to say your car is new, sayyaratak jadida. You would use the feminine because the word car is still a feminine word. So if you describe it, it's still feminine. Sayyaratak jadida. Or if you are a woman, sayyaratak jadida. Your car is new. Okay? So now what you can do is you can practice taking any of the nouns that we've done and then adding a kaf to it to make it yours. Okay? The other thing that you want to do is you want to practice with the pronunciation of the letters. So I want you to look at which ones I already pointed out to you. On page 149, you're going to do drill 2. And this is practicing between the qaf and the kaf to see which one of those words has a qaf in it. And then on page 152, you're going to do the listening exercise 5. And that's the same thing between the qaf. All of these are between the qaf and the kaf. And then on page 154, you've got drill 4, which you're getting a word and you're choosing which one is it. Is it qaf or is it kaf? And then you have also drill 5. And drill 5 is a really excellent reading drill. So what I'd like you to do for drill 5 is practice reading. Go one by one. So read 1A and 1B. So for instance, I'll give you an example. 1A looks like this, and 1B looks like this. So you would read it. This is kaf, kada, kada, qaf, qada. So you're going to read through them one by one. So do A and B, and then click the listening on the website. So click the listening, listen to it, and hear whether you pronounced it correctly. And then correct yourself if you did it incorrectly. Okay? And then in drill 6, all you're doing is you're filling in the blanks. There's a blank there, and you're filling in the blank. Do you hear a qaf in there, or do you hear a kaf? So these are all really great drills to practice the difference between those two sounds. Okay?